Hi there, it's Bruce Wallace from Dundee and Victoria Chess Club in Bonnie, Scotland, and the game I've got here was played in an Allegro tournament that was held just a day ago on Sunday, and the time control was a half an hour for all moves, no quick play finish. And this game was played between Ian Marks, who had the white pieces, and Ian I think is approximately 1900, he's a relatively strong player, and Ed Spencer from my own club, Dundee and Victoria, and he's the stronger player. He's rated about 2200 and does compete at quite a high level. And I think this shows basically the difference between fairly strong players and stronger players against rapid time control, because Ed Spencer plays very precisely here to get a win, and Ian Marks doesn't do much wrong. But let's see the game. I promised to post it for Ed. So Ian kicks off with e4 and Ed replies c5. We've got Sicilian. Knight f3, knight c6, d4, c takes d, knight takes, and now we have another knight out. Now this could transpose into various lines, but with this move it's known as the four knights variation, and black here can play moves like e5 immediately, or d6, and or even g7 I suppose. He's got a lot of options, but he plays e6, and then white plays knight b to d5, and then bishop b5, b4, which is the best move as recommended, and now a3, bishop takes, knight takes, and d5, e takes, and now as recommended by my analytical assistant, bishop d3, the best move, then bishop g4. Just going back there, the best move as recommended by Shredder was castle, but bishop g4 was the second best, and f3 also recommended, and bishop e6 also recommended. So both players are finding very precise moves here, without having too much thinking time. White castles, and then queen b6, check. Recommended move was castle, knight h5, or bishop queen b6 as was played. King h1, it's a common early move in Sicilians. Black forces white to make that move now, and also is putting pressure on the b2 pawn. Should white bring his bishop out. d4, then knight e4, then we have an exchange of knights, bishop takes, and so far things in fact are going white's way. White has a small edge here, castles, and then f4. Now instead of f4, Shredder recommends rook e1 here, and after f4 the edge for white begins to dissipate because black plays f5, and there's a number of tempo gains for black here, and white's advantage is negligible now. Bishop f3, slight advantage to black now. If we go back, bishop d3 is recommended as a better move. There's not much in it though. Bishop f3, then bishop c4, hitting the rook. Now in some senses that just forces the rook to go to a more active square, so it's probably not the best move. What the analytical assistant does recommend here is rook e1, with a slight plus for white, sorry. Then rook a to d8, b3, and this is one option that white doesn't seem to look at, placing his bishop on b2, getting pressure on the long diagonal, because that forces it to go to bishop d5, then an exchange of bishops, rook takes, and then bishop b2, and pressurizing both the d pawn, and if it should move, pressure on the g7 pawn. d3, c takes, then queen f2, queen c1, doubling the rooks, hitting the pawn, rook e3, rook 8 to d7, and then rook b1, h6, and then rook g7, rook g3, hitting the g7 pawn, and more or less pinning this d6 knight to its defence, and then king h7. And here, in fact, black's advantage is still marked, but it's very close, with counter chances on both sides. However, after bishop c4, white played bishop e2, and now the tide begins to turn in black's favour. Now black has a slight edge. Black played bishop d5, then bishop f3, and now a good move from black, bishop e4, and I don't think exchanging does much good because it gives black two connected pawns, one of which is passed. So white then plays queen e2, and this gives a big lurch in black's favour here, because it's potentially putting black's queen on an open file, and black could get a rook behind it. But first of all, black plays an aggressive move. What were the alternatives though to queen e2? b4, for example. b3 with the idea of fianchettoing again, and bishop e2 were alternatives to queen e2. However, d3, c takes, and then the knight comes in hitting the queen. Now it doesn't give a massive advantage here for black. White plays queen f2, and then bishop takes, and the pawn must take back. Knight b3, and still, in fact, black has not got a massive advantage here. White exchanges queens, probably hoping that the pressure would dissipate here and give him drawing chances, but a far better move in this situation was bishop e3, attacking the queen, developing the bishop and connecting rooks, and now again it's almost equal. However, going back, queen takes b6, pawn takes, rook b1 forced, rook f to e8, and now there's a big advantage for black. You see the position basically opening up. White's bishop isn't developed, and black's rooks have control of the open files and have much more activity. King g2. Now instead of king g2, Shredder recommended d4 and then rook a to d8. However, after king g2, we had rook a to c8, and now we see the potential danger for white here. The rook is threatening to come down to c2, checking the king. The bishop can't develop to d2, so it's trapped, or to, in fact, d3, as the rook will take, and the rook on e8 is threatened to come to e6 and coming in to check the white king either on the g file or the h file. So white's in real trouble here. Plays d4, then the attack, rook c2 check, king g3, and really it's all over now. Rook e6, there's no defence to this attack. d5, rook g6 check, king h3, rook h6, king g3, rook takes h2, and white resigns here, because no matter what white moves, it can't move the king at all. It can move a rook, or we'll just say move the bishop. It's rook h6 to h3 and its mate, and I think that showed that almost small moves make a massive difference here. If you go back to the game, to where, for example, knight b3 was played, bishop e3 was basically a saving move and chances were about equal, but the queen exchange, and after a takes b, the rook b1 move costing a tempo and tying the bishop down, allowing rook f to e8, and from then on in, white was in big trouble. So a very precise game played by Ed Spencer, and at fast time control, stronger players definitely do have an advantage. So I hope you enjoyed that. See you soon.